Oh, yes! Welcome into Snow The Goalie, the only Flyers podcast, the People's Podcast, Players Podcast, Prognosticators Podcast, Pedialyte Podcast. We're down to the Final Four. Final Four Games podcast. I'm Russ Joy on Twitter, @JoyOnBroad. Anthony SanFilippo is here, @AntSanPhilly. Bundy is here, on Twitter, @CTherien6. Gentlemen, it feels like it's been so long, and yet here we are. The Final Four games remaining. The Flyers coming off a massive win against the New York Rangers up in Madison Square Garden. And Bundy, I'm going to throw it to you first. How are you doing today, you beaut?
I'm doing great, guys. Good to be here. Weather's turning. It's a little bit nicer today, and the Flyers had a big win last night, which me and Anthony predicted. The Rangers are what we like to call in the hockey community as a fucking dumpster fire.
Wow.
Wow, that was early. I didn't even have my finger on the button. That was, wow.
You
Okay.
watched the Rangers.
It's not wrong. You're not wrong, Bundy.
If you watch the way they played last night, I mean, it was so fucking unbelievably bad that you're thinking to yourself, how could this team possibly make the playoffs? And, of course, they're not going to. The one goal, I can't remember if it was the Flyers' second goal or third goal. Zibanejad had a play at the point, and all he had to do was make a hard play to get it out. And he didn't want to get hit. And he just pushes it with one hand on his stick. The Flyers keep it in. They come back in. I think it was a Forster goal, the one his first of the night. But when you play hockey like that, you're just sending a message to your entire team, your fan base, the organization that you're just not really all in at all. It was a microcosm play of who the New York Rangers are. And you know what? And I think when I watch the Flyers this year, yeah, they've had some really bad moments, like losing 11 out of 12 down the stretch, and things that, the wheels had come off the bus a little bit. But you know what? At least I can say for the most part, this team competed hard this year. They gave it all they had in most games. And some nights it wasn't going to work out. Talent caught up to them against certain teams. But at least they competed. They fought hard in third periods. I mean, that's a game last night. The Rangers, say what you want, are fighting for their playoff lives. There was still some air to be breathed by the New York Rangers, and they just couldn't do it. They just were not able to do it against a team like the Flyers, who were coming in feeling pretty good about their game, free, playing a free style of hockey. They look like they're not scared to play, and the Rangers just had absolutely no answer for it, coupled with a hideous performance in net by Jonathan Quick. So good win by the Flyers. I'm doing great, and I'm glad to be here with you guys today.
It is kind of wild. Last night's game, I have a buddy who's a lifelong Rangers fan. I still, love the guy. It's a terrible life choice, but he's a Rangers fan. And, getting his back and forth. So I had one text with him, and I had a text with another guy who's a big Flyers fan. And they both said how much they hate their respective teams, what they were doing last night, right? The Flyers fans, this is why. 8 goals, why? And then the Rangers fan is if you ever want to see a textbook example of a guy or a team that's given up on a coach, look at Kreider looking totally uninterested after scoring a goal. Rangers fans, I think, have now fallen into that place, now that they're effectively out of it, that now they want to tank. They want to see their team get a better pick. I don't know, guys. Just as a quick toss-up here, which team has had the more disappointing season relative to what preseason expectations were? Would you say it's New York, who are going to miss the playoffs, or Nashville, who are going to be one of the top lottery teams?
I'd say New York is still probably the team that's more disappointing because they were considered a cup contender in the East and just didn't get it done. Whereas Nashville, they were expected to be a good team, expected to be, in the mix, but I don't think anybody looked at Nashville and said, because the West was so loaded, and said, "Oh yeah, Stanley Cup contender there." They could be a dangerous team. They could pull off an upset in the first round, maybe make a little bit of a run. They've got some veteran players; they're pretty good, but I don't think anybody looked at the Predators and said Cup team. I think a lot of people looked at the Rangers and thought Cup team, and they're just going to flat out miss, and that's a disaster. It's going to cost Lavi his job. Wouldn't surprise me if it cost Drury his job. I think that the Rangers are probably the biggest mess in the NHL this season.
Are you surprised that they didn't make a move off of either one of those guys? I know that kill me for the cross-sport comparison. Denver Nuggets with 5 games left or 5 days left, 3 games left in the regular season in the NBA, 2 years off of a championship, just fired their head coach and GM like a day or two ago. And that again is a team that 2 years removed from a championship, a year removed from losing in the semifinals. I get it, totally different league, but like they're making that change because of how toxic the organization seemingly is. There have been all these rumors coming out all season about the Rangers and about potential issues, toxicity between the players in the front office, players and the coach, all of that. Are you shocked that they didn't make a move at the coaching level or in the front office at any point this season?
No, I'm not. It's the comparison you make. Look, you never know why teams make decisions when they make them. The Denver thing in the NBA probably caught some people by surprise that it happened when it happened. Usually things like that happen after the season's over. I'm not surprised because, one, you don't usually, although we've seen it here, fire a general manager in season. Usually that's after the season kind of thing, or at a time when the team is an absolute dreck, at the bottomed out. Drury was probably given a chance because the Rangers were in contention still. Say, figure it out, resolve your problems, make something happen at the trade deadline. Let's see what happens. And they've just fallen apart here in the last couple weeks. I mean, they were in a playoff spot a week and a half ago, and now they're out of it completely. Well, pretty much out of it. As for Laviolette, he just signed his contract last year. So you're not likely to fire a coach earlier in a season in only his second season, and you made a great run last year with him. And so at first you got to think, if you're the Rangers ownership and management, you're thinking, all right, look, this season's not going as we thought. This could just be a bad year, but we'll retool. This guy got us far last year. He's got 2 more years on his contract. He'll be fine for next season. And that didn't happen. And so it's only gotten worse. And so I think it's ultimately going to cost both of them their jobs. But at this point, if you're the Rangers, why do it now? Like, why just wait till the nail's in the coffin and then do it?
But
the Denver Nuggets, from what they were saying, they just couldn't play defense. They weren't playing defensive basketball at all. And that's how you end up getting both guys fired if you're not. I remember having over the years, Bob Clark came into the locker room and used to tell us as we got to the playoffs, if you guys play good defense, you'll have a chance to win the cup. That's what he used to tell us. It's funny, even at that, when you get there with the amount of talent we had, but you had to have a good defensive system in place. The Rangers are so bad defensively, they don't even commit themselves at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I said, that microcosm I was talking about, the Zibanejad play on that one goal the Flyers scored. I mean, that's just getting the puck out at the blue line. Just taking one step forward, just shoveling it out with your stick. He goes one hand on it just to not make. Oh, I don't really want to make this play, but I'm going to try. And it never came out, and the Flyers scored. It kind of changed the game around. But those are the kind of plays that the Rangers have made all around the ice this year. It's pretty clear they don't like the coach, as evidenced by Kreider's goal late. I mean, there's still a game. This is a team in the playoff hunt, right? That last night was their season, that hockey game, and they were a no-show for the most part.
It's brutal. It was a brutal game. And, whether you are somebody who wants to see the guys go out and give it their all every night, I mean, you have a nice moment there, I guess. Tyson Forster gets the empty net goal, first hat trick of his career, eclipses the 20-goal mark again. Earlier in the game, people were feeling pretty good about that. That's if you kind of look at things one way. If you look at them another way, and you do kind of have an eye on the fact that yesterday the Flyers woke up with the 4th best odds for the lottery, you can't, we're not going to relitigate this. You can't tell players to go out and lose. They're not going to do that. But from a fan perspective, you can look at it and say, well, that's not exactly ideal. As things stand right now, the Flyers have a game in hand over Boston. I'll actually just pull it up here because we'll get this part of the show in and out and on with life. But if you take a little gander here at where things are as of this morning, the Flyers wake up with the 5th best odds. But if you look, they have a game in hand over both Boston and Seattle. Boston, they are tied with on points. Seattle, they are technically they have one fewer point. We've said this for a while. No one is breaking that top 3. San Jose, Chicago, and Nashville are so far behind the rest of the pack that will be your bottom 3 teams in the league. Boston was in free fall for a while. They won their last game. And now you have this Rangers team that's lost 3 straight. unlikely that they get back into that same pack. So really, if you're looking at, best odds, all that, Boston, Philadelphia, Seattle, outside chance at Pittsburgh are going to be battling for anywhere from number 4 to number 7 going into that lottery. It doesn't have a massive impact. And even if you look at the percentages, it's not a huge, it's a 1% difference between the number 4 and the number 5. The big thing there, as always, is 2 positions in the draft are up for lottery, which means that in the worst case scenario, you could move down 2 positions. And knowing that many people have regarded this as anywhere between a 4 and a 6 player draft, you don't necessarily want to end up at number 5 or 6 and find yourself potentially out of those top 5 or maybe 6 players. Have you heard anything to this point that gives you the indication that there are some scouts within the organization that maybe feel as though this draft is more than a 4 to 6 player draft now? Is there anybody quickly rising up the boards that is changing the outlook that maybe can make people feel better if the Flyers fall out of that top 4, top 5?
Yeah, no. I mean, we talked previously about Denwye. They do like him. They probably look at him though as the 7th guy in the draft. Whether they, we'll see as things progress here towards the end of the year. We have a better idea of where they're going to pick, of what their pecking order is. I don't think that their draft board has completely been put together yet. But I think that they look at it as, you have the number 1 pick, then you have 2 through 6, and then it's like 7 through 25. And that's kind of how really that's where the collection of talent kind of falls. Of course, you can always get a guy in that 7 to 25 range where, turns out to be better than you thought. Somebody might be in that group. But that's kind of that's kind of how this draft breaks down. The good news for the Flyers is this draft is heavy on centers. And that's obviously a position of need for the Flyers. So they will be able to get centers. The question is, are they able to get an elite level center? Or are you looking at getting centers who will be NHL players, but are probably further down your lineup centers in the NHL? And I think that, obviously with the back picks in the first round, the later picks in the first round, that's likely, 3rd, 4th line type guys as far as the center position. But wherever the first pick falls in the lottery is likely going to tell you whether or not they're able to get a guy that they view as a future first line center or not.
It'll be interesting. I mean, we're going to have an eye on it. We'll be talking about it. And like we mentioned, I think on the last show, maybe 2 shows ago, we will bring on somebody as a guest. Typically, we only bring guests on like fellow media people on Press Row Show, the Kimmelmans of the world, the Bill Meltzers of the world. But I do think that as we get closer to the draft, it'll be worth having one of those guys pop on the show and just.
I cannot do a show that night. Somebody asked. My daughter's getting married, boys. There's precedents, and that's one of them. Friday, June 22nd.
On draft night.
Your daughter's getting married on draft night?
On draft night. Yeah, I have to give her a call and tell her that I might be backed up a little bit that night, but I'll be there and present and ready to go.
We expect a report live from the wedding. Gonna have to.
I'll give you live reports.
So that's very cool. That is very, very cool. So okay, just to recap, I went on vacation last draft. Your daughter gets married on this year's draft. And what's your plan for next year?
Yeah, I gotta look it up. I gotta look it up. I gotta see when the draft is.
Maybe you'll have to go down and cover, Phillies versus Braves or something in Atlanta. That'd be a good enough reason, right? That's a good enough reason these days, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a controversial thought.
Okay. What else is new?
So there is a trend that I think is concerning. Now, I had people on Twitter who surprisingly took this poorly. I know it's a shock. And I brought up the fact that I find it still concerning. The rumors are out there. The murmurs are out there that Travis Konecny's been playing through an injury and probably not a a non-significant injury, and that may have impacted his production here. And I put out on Twitter that just in theory, as of when I did, I think it was like last weekend, Travis Konechny had 4 goals since January 9th. Tippett had 8 goals since January 9th. And just pointing out the fact that they make around $12 million, I think, against the cap this year, and then next year the extension kicks in for Konechny, and then you're looking at closer to $15 million a year. I want to play a game. Now, I don't want you to look it up. I know Bundy won't. Ant, you have to promise, honor code here.
Mm-hmm.
Owen Tippett makes about $6.2 million over the next, 6 seasons, something like that. We're going to play a game, and that game is going to be Owen Tippett versus Cutter Gauthier. Now, I'm going to throw some stats out, and I want you to determine whether these stats belong to Owen Tippett or to Cutter Gauthier. Okay, now keep in mind, Gauthier has played 5 more games than Tippett has this year, okay? Which player has more goals this season, Owen Tippett or Cutter Gauthier?
Owen
I believe
Tippett.
it's Tippett, yeah.
Okay, would you guys like to guess the disparity? That is correct. Would you like to guess how many more goals Tippett has than Gauthier this season?
3?
Probably 4, 5.
1. Now,
Okay.
again, he's played in 5 fewer games, so good. He's put up the goals. Let's go to assists. Who has more assists, Cutter Gauthier or Owen Tippett?
I'm going to probably say Gauthier.
Yeah, I agree on that.
He does. He has 2 more assists. Now, on the season, again, fewer games played. Owen Tippett has 41 total points in 73 games played. Cutter Gauthier has 42 points in 78 games played. Now, you might be wondering why I asked this and why I started the framing around Travis Konechny having 4 goals since January 9th. It's because Cutter Gauthier happens to have 4 goals in the last 2 games. Now, does that matter? I don't know. But this is what I got as the blowback. And Bundy, I want you to explain it to me like I'm 5. There were people who said, well, of course Travis Konechny isn't scoring. He has nobody to play with. He has no centers to play with. I would simply point to Matvei Mishkov and say, these guys both play on the power play. They both get a decent number of minutes. Konechny plays more minutes every night. But what is the rationale? What is an explanation for this drastic drop-off? 4 goals in the course of 3 months. I get that there's a Four Nations break, but 4 goals is not good. Even if you're hurt, you would think that with all the power play time, he should be scoring more, no?
Yeah, you know what? I really think when I look at Konechny's year, I think in general, I think he just got burned out. I really think he got burned out, whether he played too much or in the early season. Remember, he's not a big guy, right? He's not a big human being, right? So more minutes are going to take its toll on guys that are smaller size players. But it really seemed like from the beginning of the Four Nations Cup till after that is really when he slid off the cliff in terms of his production. So, again, whether they have to maintain that next year or keep a closer eye on it, I mean, you don't want to discourage a guy who put up 20 goals in the first half of the season but really hadn't turned it on in the second half of the season. So, if he is playing hurt, I admire him for that, for a guy playing through it in a season that's a lost season, again, with no playoffs. But I really just think that he's just a burned-out hockey player.
Yeah, and that's possible. I don't understand the worry about the guy. I mean, yeah, he went through a rough stretch. This happens in hockey, right? This happens over a course of X number of games. Guys have really rough periods. It would be different if Travis Konechny was having a bad year or a bad year and a half. Travis Konechny had a bad 30 games. You're going to have that happen in sports. He's still got a shot with 4 games to go at finishing the season as a point-per-game player. He's already set a career high in points, career high in assists. Yeah, I mean, you could look at it and say for sure took a step back in the back half of the year. But to sit there, I mean, Owen Tippett to me is a bigger question mark. That one is the one I look at and say there's something there that isn't sitting as well with me. But the Konechny thing, I can't sit there and be upset at a guy for scoring 4 goals in 30 games, but he's still going to have a chance to be a point per game player for the year. Like that's a hard thing to knock a guy for. Now, if the team was in contention and he was their leading scorer and not putting up points and they end up missing the playoffs because he went cold, I think it's a whole different conversation. But it's
not Elias Pettersson.
Yeah, exactly. I just think that, sometimes that's just the nature of the sport, and especially it really is that more when it's a team that's not really in contention. Here's another thing to put on to him, Russ.
Yeah.
Travis Konechny this season already has played 1,608 minutes of ice time. Mm-hmm. That has already exceeded the most of his career by more than 100 minutes. And there's still 4 games to go. So you see what I'm saying? He's played all 78 games.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's only ever. Well, yeah. I mean, he played 82.
He played 76 last year. He's played 82
and something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. He's done it before.
Yeah.
Well, but he's averaging over 20 minutes a game. And he's only done that once in his career.
Yeah, his time
and that was
is the highest.
Yeah, it's high. It's high, right? I mean, so like part of what Bundy is saying is could be it too. Not only is he playing the most ice time that he's had this year, but especially if you're playing through an injury and putting up those kind of minutes, you could kind of understand and kind of see why there's a little bit of a drop off.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason that I bring it up, and it's funny because, again, like dipshits on Twitter, there was some lady who got very upset on Twitter. I don't know if she is like hoping that he's going to sign an autograph for her or send her flowers. I don't know. I don't think he's interested. I would assume he's probably not. But this lady, wanted to make the case that how are you going to score goals if the rest of your team sucks? And I think that the reason that it's a little bit frustrating, or the reason that you kind of put it under the microscope, is just because he's been your leading goal scorer in back-to-back seasons. And that when he was signed to that extension, the idea was that he was probably going to be your leading goal scorer. And listen, he has a chance to still be that leading goal scorer this year, but he's put up 30-plus in back-to-back years, and he put up 31 in like 60 games 2 years ago. So I think there was just kind of the expectation that he was going to potentially take that next step. Now, listen, points are great. 75 points, career high in points, is great. But again, like I think that when you go into it expecting that he's going to be a guy that is going to eclipse that 30-goal mark every year, and it seems highly unlikely that it's going to happen, I get that there are rough patches. I get that there are dry spells, but the question just remains, if you're getting all this time on the power play, and in theory, there are other guys that have been able to pot some goals, you would think that at some point a goal scorer is going to be able to find his way through. I just find it interesting. That's it. The Tippett thing, though, and to your point, is probably more concerning because, sure, he's at 20 goals for the year. He has 41 points on the season. I did the heads up against him and Gauthier. $6.2 million, and that's a long-term deal, and there are games, many of them, where Owen Tippett can't hit the broadside of a barn. He is faster than, 85% of the guys he takes the ice against. He probably has a harder shot than like 80% of the guys that he takes the ice with, and yet he hasn't been able to put it together. How much of that do you just put on this tumultuous season, this down year? Is he mentally, not totally there? Like, where are you with Tippett? And like, is there any possibility that the Flyers look at this and go, ooh, it might be worth having a conversation? Maybe you weren't willing to have a conversation around his name in the trade market. Like, do you think that they get to that point this offseason and they go, nah, put a new coach in charge, see how he plays?
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna look to move him this offseason. It's definitely a slightly disappointing year. I mean, you had progression over the last 2 years. Like 2 years ago, he had a good year. He was even better, slightly better last year. And so you thought, okay, maybe he's that kind of guy who's going to get, incrementally better as he gets a little bit older with a little bit more experience. And then he took a step back this year. Not a big step back, but a step back. But ultimately, with the cap situation, what it is, I'm not really worried about the contract so much. I just think that the Flyers probably expected more out of him, and they're not getting it. And so now you look at Owen Tippett and you say, all right, well, where does he fit going forward. Is he good enough to, does he still project in your mind as a second line winger, or is he more of a third line winger? And if he is, then that's fine. But let's not expect him to be more than that. Like if this guy scores between 22 to 28 goals a year, and he's a 50-point player at $6.2 million with the cap going up, that's not awful. It's right now it's probably looks less, right? But with the cap going up over the next few years at $6.2 million, that's roughly what guys in that productivity, grouping are going to be making. And, does he stand out from that group? No. But is he, is it an albatross of a contract? Also no. It's probably just about average. So I think that there's a little bit of disappointment there, but I don't think it's like, oh my God, what an awful, terrible contract. How did they ever think to do that? It's not one of those either. I just think it's one of those meh kind of guys, right?
Bundy, do you think that the losing and this season just being what it was, and maybe the feelings with the coach in the locker room for a lot of the season, do you think that might have had an impact on a guy like Tippett, on the confidence? Or do you just think it's one of those years where he just?
I think there's a lot of things that he can still do to improve his game. I don't think it was all because of the way the team went, but I do think that he flowed with it. I think when the trade started happening, I really think Tippett was really affected by it. When they lost Morgan Frost and Farabee, he looked like they're good friends of his. And then when Lawton got traded, it looked like he really dipped off even more. So, yeah, I do feel like he was definitely got caught up a little bit maybe in all the stuff that comes along with the trades and a changing team. That he's now become an important cog on in terms of the way they paid him. But I do. I do think he was one of the guys that didn't benefit really well from what went on, and I think that probably hurt him a little bit down the stretch. He's been a lot better since Torts was fired. He looks like a much more relaxed hockey player on the ice as well, as do a lot of guys. To be quite honest with you.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that there was a tough time for Tippett dealing with that. He was really close with all the guys that went out of here, and so I think that there was some impact there. I don't necessarily think that he was really in the former coach's good graces, or particularly liked the former coach all that much. I think that since the firing, he's looked like a little bit different of a player. And that's maybe good for him. And so maybe, you look at it and say, let's see what it looks like next season. And if you get a lot of the same thing again next season, then it's a telling thing, right? Then you kind of have a little bit better understanding of it. But he's ultimately going to be, in the same ballpark he's been the past 2 years. Like, I don't know. Do you view that negatively overall? Like, I don't think it's a major negative. I don't think it's something that you get there and go, oh my God, this is awful. But I also don't think it's a, you don't just say, oh, it's okay, everything's fine. It's another year of evaluation there. That's what it is.
I think so much of it, though, I think that the way that you kind of have to frame some of this is like, in a nutshell, like if you view it in a vacuum, is Owen Tippett 2 years from now, when the cap percentage comes down, his AAV relative to an increase in cap, does it hamstring you? Does it prevent you from making a move? No, it probably is okay. What's that smile about? What's so fucking funny, giggly bits?
Somebody is watching and just texted me and Bundy something that was very funny. That's all. Cannot say it on the show. Yeah.
Okay.
I can guess.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Okay. I think what people want to see is that there is a step being taken, that there is progress being made with some of these players. And what we heard at the beginning of the year is think about all the great things that Torts does to develop these players and look at all the steps that these guys are taking. And if we're being fair here, it is kind of hard to see the year-over-year improvement of a lot of these guys. We're talking about players that have regressed. We talked about guys like Farabee and Frost that did not progress. They got moved out of town. You have a guy like Tippett who's regressed. You have a guy in like Tyson.
See, I don't want to say it's I don't want to look. See, I think that you when you say that he regressed, is having a similar season to the previous 2 seasons regression, or is it just he kind of treaded water? Like, I don't look at it as a regret. I don't sit there and look at Owen Tippett and go, he didn't have a terrible season. Like, it wasn't an awful season. Like, oh my God, how bad was he this year?
Right.
He just didn't progress beyond where he was the previous 2 seasons. So I think it was kind of just that's not a regression. Like, because it's a
plateau or you regress. There are 3 functionalities here.
Well, no, so you don't know.
Say that he's plateaued.
Well,
right?
correct. But I think that there's probably a 4th, and it's just that he is what he was. Like, plateauing would mean that you cannot go further, right? Like, you've reached your peak, you've reached your point. That would mean you've plateaued, right? I think this is more like he didn't progress, but he also didn't regress. And he may not have plateaued yet. We don't know. So I think there's still kind of that.
What you're talking about is peaking. Plateauing can be over an extended period of time. You can still go up. Like, I wouldn't say that he's peaked. I wouldn't say that last year was peaking, but I would say that, like, if you want to have like the most positive read on it. I mean, if you want the most positive read on it is he's plateaued. He's 12 points off of his pace from a year ago. He has 4 games. He won't be able to, match the games played that he had last year. I guess it depends on how close does he get.
But that's okay. So here's the thing too. Like, do you have to reach a certain counting stat benchmark to be considered progression, regression, plateau? Like, is there something that is standard? I don't see that. Like, I don't look at that and say that that's a standard that is for a player's like, I look at Noah Cates, for example, right, as a guy who 2 years ago had a great year, and then last year was not good. Mm-hmm. That was regression. Last year was a regression for him, and he's bounced back to where he was 2 years ago this season. But he may never be better than this. This might just be what Noah Cates is, and that's fine. He could be this, and that would be plateauing, right? Because he's not peaking, he's not progressing, but he regressed and came back. It doesn't mean he progressed. He just got back to where he was before, right? I mean, so like I don't look at Owen Tippett's season as, and we're mincing words, it's stupid to be semantical, but I don't necessarily think the season is a regression season for Owen Tippett. It's disappointing that he didn't progress further because you thought there could be progress. And so, like, that's where the disappointment in his season comes in. But I don't look at it as a regression. I don't think he regressed and became a worse player. And someone, I didn't see who it was. Someone had pointed out that he...
I want to fact check this one from JC's, but it says he had 179 shots on goal this year. He had 289 last year.
That doesn't necessarily mean regression. The team played a different style. The team played a different style. The team played a different style this year.
What was different about the way that they played this year versus last year?
They tried systemically. They tried so hard to play a defensive posture this year to stay in games that they did not. They didn't have the goaltending this year that they had last year. So they could be a little bit more aggressive last season when you had Carter Hart and when Sam Urson was playing as well as he was playing, and they could be a little bit more aggressive up the ice and get more shots on goal. They could take some chances. This year, with the goaltending as bad as it was, they, for the majority of the season, had to play more of a defensive posture in front of their goalie, so they weren't getting as many chances down the ice. And Tippett wasn't that guy who could break out and get those stretch passes and go down and get shots on goal. Like those, they just didn't materialize. That doesn't. Do I think that he could have had a few more shots on goal because he missed so many shots wide of the net in the beginning of the season? Sure, you could probably have 30 more shots. But to sit there and say that the fact that he took 80 less shots is a suggestion that he's regressed is not true, because you have to look at how the whole team was playing and the style that they were playing.
Okay. Got it. How about goalie? How are we feeling? Alexei Kolosov last night in a game that many thought was a tank game, in one that you put the guy in. Bradshaw said that he was going to get at least one start here down the stretch. Alexei Kolosov allows 5 goals. Not exactly a great performance, but it was good enough. It was better than allowing 8. How do we feel about the guy that some people call Sexy Alexei, others call the Cola Sieve? How are you guys feeling about Kolosov and his? Did he do anything there, Ant, to make a case to remain with this team next year, to perhaps gain interest in the trade market from other teams? What do you think about young Alexei Kolosov?
No. Here's something for Alexei Kolosov. The Flyers have not said this, and you probably won't hear about it until after the season's over. But they're not even going to send him back to the Phantoms to play in the playoffs. He's just going to go home. He's going to go back to Belarus.
Wow.
So, yeah. That it's just, I think that they gave him a game just to give him a game. They're paying the guy, might as well let him play. What the hell's the difference? But yeah, he's going to go home. I think this may have been the last time you see Kolosov.
Is there a possibility that another team takes a look at him and says, we'd give it a shot?
Sure, but it doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, I don't think that maybe, but you're not getting anything for him. Like if that's the case, if another team is going to take a chance, it's going to be for a bag of pucks. You're not going to get anything for him. Like it's not like you're going to get a great asset. Like he's a guy.
If you kind of replicate what happened at the start of the season, though, like where he's not here, he's over in Belarus, he's not at camp. There are a million different reasons. There are a million different things going on. Isn't the bag of pucks still more valuable than having a guy that you don't think has a future here?
What's the bag of pucks? Like you think it's going to be like even like a 7th round draft pick, and I'm telling you it's not.
No clue.
I would tell you that if another team wanted to trade for Kolosov to take a chance on him, the best they would do is offer some minor league player who's going to play for the Phantoms because it's a veteran minor leaguer who can help young guys. That's what you're getting, right? That's the kind of trade value that he would have. He wouldn't have trade value for anything that's a real asset.
Do you think we're ever going to find out like what the deal is with this guy and with whatever happened this year? Because it's interesting, right? Like they decided to use their final recall this year to bring him back up. And then he plays this one game. It's probably the only one. It maybe hamstrung them from being able to like bring up another player they could actually get a look at.
No, that didn't hamstring anything, Russ. I'll tell you, that had more to do with getting him away from the Phantoms, who are trying to do something in the postseason, than it was to get another look at Kolosov.
Then why not just?
So will he be back down with the Phantoms, though, Anthony, for the playoffs?
No, he's not going to be. The Flyers haven't announced this yet, but he's not going to be back. I would be utterly stunned if they come out and say, "Oh yeah, we're going to send him back down to the Phantoms, and he's going to play for them in the postseason." I'd be
video guy
stunned.
Amadeo to clip this.
Clip it.
Kolosov starts the Calder Cup finals.
I would be stunned. Stunned if that would be a change of thought from what's going on in that organization right now. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing, and they're ready to let that problem just go away.
It has honestly been. Go ahead, Bundy. What was that?
Just make it disappear as fast as possible. That's basically what Ant is saying.
There have been some really weird situations with this team in the past. There have been some really weird situations with prospects, with other players. What the hell? What's Johansson, right? Like they're still going through the arbitration. I think that's like that was a weird thing that happened. It almost feels like this team. Sometimes you look at like the wider. I think Wells Fargo Center needs to be torn down. Like I am 100%.
Well, it's going to be.
No, but I'm 100% convinced that Wells Fargo Center needs to be torn down. They need to bring in like a priest, an imam, a rabbi, a Buddhist, like a monk. They need to bring in like a healer, a shaman, just like everybody just put it together. Burn sage, like just do stuff at the site of Wells Fargo Center and just get any of the bad juju out. Because between some of the shit that's happened in recent years with the Flyers, with a lot of the shit that's happened in recent years with the Sixers, I am just now convinced that nothing good can happen in that building. Because this Kolosov thing, I think, among all of the weird things that have happened, remains one of the strangest things. And I think that like when we look back on this years from now, you know how like sometimes we look back at what season was it where they had 8 different goalies in the same season? Was that 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
It's
where
longer than that.
Cal Pick,
4
right?
years
It was
ago, longer than that.
Talbot
5
and
years ago.
Pickard, and right, they were all like the way that we kind of look back and then I go, oh, I think we're gonna look back at this season years from now and be like, oh, remember Alexei Kolosov? Remember that was weird. You know, it's just a very strange storyline going around the team the entire year. So, oh, there we go. Video guy Amadeo, 2018-19, and Rory. Good job, gents. And how convinced are you now that the Flyers are going to go out after a free agent goalie? And how does that?
I think they have
changed
to.
since the beginning of the year?
Look, I have no intel to say yes that's happening, but it has to. Like, they have to. They don't have the goalie in house. They want to be a more competitive team next year. They don't have that player here. They just don't. And so you could keep Sam Urson as your number 2 goalie, but you need somebody else to be able to play 50 games next season. And it may not be a sexy name that you're going to go after, but they're going to get an NHL veteran. They're going to bring a guy in who's played in this league, and they'll probably give him a 2-year deal or something, or 2 to 3 year deal at a decent salary. Again, salary cap's going up. So that's what they'll do. If they didn't, then you're going to have another year like you have this year. They have to. They have to go get a goalie.
Yeah, they have to do something. Yeah, you can't roll the dice with that again.
There was one other thing that was notable. There were rumors about Carson Bjarnason heading to the Phantoms, but then it came out. Was it yesterday it got reported that he had an injury, and so he was going to come to Philadelphia to get evaluated by the team doctors, by the Flyers team doctors? And have you heard any kind of update around Bjarnason?
I have not heard an update, no.
Okay. So that'll be, listen, if he is able to is there a scenario here, if he's not seriously hurt, if it's just like a minor knock or whatever, and Kolosov is up here presumably to keep him away from the Phantoms, is there a scenario where you could see Bjarnason suiting up as the backup, or do you think they'll just want to have him around the Phantoms to just be around for that playoff chase? Is there any value to that? Where you at there?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, I just don't. I think that they have the people in place that they want. They loaned Abels back down because they wanted a veteran guy to be down there with them, and they have the people there that they want there, and I think that's what you're looking at. And the Phantoms are gonna make a nice push with with an AHL team, and there'll be some guys that will get some real experience going on an AHL run. As someone who's covered one of those, I can tell you that there is great benefit for those players to experience that, even if it's against AHL competition. There is great value in learning how to play, an extra month and a half of a hockey season, for just from a conditioning perspective, like how to get your body right, what that feels like to go on a playoff push and a playoff run, like all of that. The end result is less important than the process of getting there, right? And I think that's an important part for this group, and so it'll be good for the Phantoms to do that, and it'll be good for the players that the Flyers view as potential NHL guys to take part in that, and they don't want people down there that are not going to be part of the future. So,
and you mentioned the future, and I thought this was actually kind of a nice thing, so we can take a look at this because we know that intern Andrew is going to be losing his shit tonight because Penn State's in the Frozen Four. But on the other side of the bracket, you have Western Michigan taking on Denver, and John Butchergrass caught up with a guy that the Flyers happen to have some hopes for, and Alex Bump. And I believe that we've talked about him a few times on the Press Row show as being a guy that this organization's pretty high on, that has a potential here. There seems to be a path to him maybe contributing to the team. I wouldn't say maybe right out of camp next year, but certainly is a guy that they're going to have a nice look at. So I want to throw over to the little availability there between Butchergrass and Alex Bump as, he gets ready to take the ice for the Frozen Four on Thursday night. Let's hear what they had to say.
All right, kid, this is Alex Bump, Western Michigan. Alex, what's the best part about the Frozen Four so far?
The free plane rides, the playing by yourself, just all the boys.
What are you looking forward to most about this weekend, especially obviously game 1 against Denver on Thursday?
Just getting it going, getting the game going, trying to win a hockey game.
Have you ever had a Philly cheesesteak before?
I have, not from Philly though.
No?
No.
Where was that?
Actually, our captain made them.
So when you think about the Flyers and the organization, what comes to mind? What words come to mind in your mind?
Gritty, work hard, proud to wear the orange and black.
And then so if a Flyer fan's going to watch the Frozen Four this week to check you out, what are they going to see?
A good 200-foot winger, more offensive minded, likes to shoot the puck, likes to try and score goals, make plays around the net. Yeah.
And looking forward to your first real Philly cheesesteak.
Exactly.
Amen. Good luck, brother.
Thank you.
All right, so Bundy, I actually want to ask you about the first thing that he said. Buchagras said, "What's your favorite thing so far?" And he said, "The free plane rides."
Yeah.
Like, I have to imagine that there's
that's a big lift up in life. I'll tell you, when you're going from riding buses and maybe a couple commercial flights to certain locations during the year. I can assure you, when the NCAA starts providing that private plane for you guys to fly to the Frozen Four, it changes everything. That was pretty cool. But that's the life that you live here. You're flying on private planes, and you're getting around a lot quicker than you would on a commercial. So I missed a couple things that he said, but I did hear that about flying on the plane. That was pretty cool.
And is there anybody else that the Flyers faithful should be keeping an eye on in the Frozen?
Well, no, so the one thing I just want to add about Bump is as soon as they're done, which could be tonight, he'll go to the Phantoms. So the Flyers will
he'll suit up for the playoffs.
Yes.
Wow.
So they did this. So they've done this before. I mean, guys do this all the time. I mean, the year I covered, just so you know, the year I covered the Phantoms when there was the lockout. Mike Richards and Jeff Carter were in junior hockey, and I think it was Carter's season ended first, and he was there. Maybe I have it backwards. Maybe it was Richards' season ended. One of them ended first and showed up. They did not play a regular season game. Showed up in the first round against Norfolk in the playoffs, and then the other one showed up in the third round against Providence. And then they both played in the Calder Cup final. So I just forget which order it was. It was Richards was first, Carter was first. But they did that, right? I mean, so it happens all the time. Teams do that. They have their young players, once they're done with college or done with their junior hockey season, junior hockey playoffs, if there's still an opportunity for them to play in the AHL, if the AHL team's still going, they'll bring them in and play in those playoffs. So I think Alex Bump will be playing for the Phantoms pretty quickly as soon as the Frozen Four is over.
The only other player that I can remember, it doesn't apply to the Frozen Four, but another guy that people are really excited about and the organization seems excited about is Denver Barkey. He's got, I think, 16 points in his last 5 games in the OHL. I know that the playoffs have already started over there. So have you heard anything about organization expectations for this kid or anything around him? Okay.
He just kind of fits the same mold of he's still a prospect. I don't expect him to be here because London, I think, will be they'll end up going all the way out. I think that's a really, really good team. So the Phantoms may well be done before London is.
Okay.
So I don't expect you'll see him this year, but he'll be there this summer in camp, and obviously he'll be part of camp next year. But I still think he's a guy that's going to need time in the AHL before he goes to the NHL for sure.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else? Oh, there was another thing, and Bundy, I know that you wanted to touch on this, but obviously the news broke. Was it yesterday? I guess it was, it was yesterday, 2 days ago. Yesterday that Ray Shero passed away. Wanted to get your thoughts there. Many know him, at least from my generation, as being a guy who kind of built up the hated Penguins. But love to get your thoughts on the guy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Flyer royalty from his which was transcended down from his father, the great Fred Shero. So, he grew up in Cherry Hill and, got involved in the hockey world, went to St. Lawrence University where my dad went to college too, played hockey there as well. So, but he, I got to know him when he became the general manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'd met him a couple times before that. This is such a sad thing to see a 62-year-old guy that devoted to the sport of hockey, but also is a great family man and this unbelievably good and kind person that always had time for everybody. But I have a great Ray Shero story. And if you go back into was it 2009 where I had that, I really went off on Crosby and on that rant there about him being a baby and, somebody should punch him in the beak and all that. It went across nationally and people like brought up the radio feed to TV and it made Crosby, it was passionate. I was pissed off at the time about what was going on in that line brawl. And anyway, I saw Ray Shero 2 days later. Of course, he's a manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I'd always seen him, and we'd always talked and stuff. So I walked by him, and I kind of looked at him, and I said, "You probably aren't too fucking happy with me right now, are you?" And he kind of laughed, and he said, "You know what?" He goes, "I'd love you to meet Crosby sometime." He goes, "He's like a good old boy, just like you. Loves to play hockey, loves to win, hates to lose." He goes, and Ray looked at me. He goes, "But I totally get it's home radio. You got to do what you got to do." And you know what? He got that, right? Like he understood Philadelphia. He understood what it was. And he was very, very gracious about it, because anytime a player of radio, just a regular radio guy goes after, a world-class star player on another team in a playoff round, you'd think the GM would be pissed. And he actually understood it from a Philadelphia standpoint more than anything else. And I thought that was just so cool. He was a really, really special person. The one thing I haven't heard really, Anthony, everyone says what happened. I heard, I don't know this for fact, that it was an aggressive form of cancer. Thinking about his family today and his friends and the people that he touched in the hockey world, he made a difference in a lot of people's lives. And when you go on Twitter and see a lot of the tributes pouring in, you can certainly find out an awful lot about who Ray Shero was and the family that he came from. So he'll be missed. Far too young to see a person like that lose their life in that kind of a battle. But I have nothing but amazingly great things to say about Ray Shero and the person he was, as does the rest of the hockey community. So we'll miss you, Ray, and rest in peace, my friend.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add to this is when I was traveling covering the team, and the Penguins used to play in the Igloo, Ray would always hold court after the game at the Marriott bar across the street from the Igloo. And so you would go after the game, and the media, we always did it. Like, it was like everybody got done quick, and let's go to that. It's literally right across the street. There's the Marriott bar, and Ray Shero would be there and just BS with the media from both Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. And I'm sure he probably did it for the media from other cities as well. But and it was just a very laid back, off the record conversation with the general manager of the Penguins. Like, we used to get some great insight and information from Ray Shero, and he was that kind of guy. Like, he just wanted to be a regular guy. Even though he had a pretty prominent position in the world of hockey, he wanted to just be a regular guy, and he was so easy to talk to, never turned down an interview, always answered your questions, and was just a good man, really good man. And it's a sad day. It's a sad day in the hockey world.
The hockey world has really had a difficult couple of weeks. We lost Greg Millen the other day, longtime reporter.
Yep.
I shared the middle of the benches with him many times over the years. Another terrific guy. And then, of course, losing Trees, Mark LaForest, a couple of weeks ago too. Yep. It's been a tough run here in the NHL for losing some alumni and some prominent figures in the league. So our thoughts and prayers to all those families and the friends of people that were very, very close to those players. And we're thinking about y'all. It's very, very tough.
I hate ending on a down note. But those are good stories, guys, and it sounds like he was a really good guy. Maybe we will end on that. We will be back. Very soon. I mean, we're back on Saturday, right?
12:30.
Wells Fargo Center, 12:30. So it'll be a 12 o'clock start, a beautiful noon start on Saturday for the Press Row Show, and then we wrap up the season as a team in person on Tuesday. Against the Blue Jackets Tuesday night. Now, I did see a question here. Well, let me see if I can find it over in the comments. Mind Munchies YT says, "What is the future of Snow the Goalie?" Ant, I don't know if you want to address it. I think that we let the people know later this week or beginning of next week what the future of Snow the Goalie is. How does that sound to you?
Is there an update on the future like that I don't know about?
I haven't heard officially about. Usually, you're our update guy, Anthony. I know we had a deadline that we needed to meet, but I got a nice text from somebody extremely high up in Flyers management that said onward and upward next year. We're looking forward to better days ahead. So I was assuming that sure sounded like we're back.
I assumed we're back too. I didn't hear anything other. I know I should never assume anything. But yeah, no, that just so everyone knows, our initial contract was for 3 years, and we've done 2 of the 3 years. The third year was an option year for both sides.
Mutual. It's the first mutual.
It was a mutual option year. But I anticipate I don't think that there's going to be anything holding that up. I'm pretty much sure we'll be back there next year.
Yeah, I think the show really, when I look at Snow the Goalie, when we first came on, it became a podcast. But when we're down at the building, it's become something entirely different. It really has. It's almost like it's become a family. Like it brings people together. We have people come on the show. We have people waiting outside the show to talk to us, signing autographs, sharing our views of hockey. It really has compounded into something far bigger than just a regular talk show every week. And I love being down there with you guys. It's like my reprieve. When I get a chance to go down to the hockey games and hang out with you guys, that's some of the best nights of the week for me. And I appreciate both you guys. I love the show, and I sure hope we're back. I would think we are. We don't seem to cause any problems. We didn't even have a fight with the coach this year. And by the way, too, I am so fucking glad Anthony did not go down and become a glutton of punishment to that coach this year. I honestly, you know what? I'm glad you didn't go, because eventually it would have made someone else snap if you would have continued on that road.
I wanted to see Paisan versus Paisan, though. I was ready for it,
Couple of paper Italians going at it. Come on, right. Put them up.
You mean I could still do my job and didn't need to talk to John Tortorella? Like, is that what you're trying to say, Bundy?
Yeah, you know what? Okay. It was like, it got to a point where you if you can't answer a guy's question, we're just trying to get a question. Like, sorry about the Cutter Gauthier thing. Like, it's fucking dead in the water. It's long gone. By the way, it didn't ruin anyone's career either. It didn't follow anybody to their grave. Nothing happened. Everything went away. Russ just wants to burst out laughing. But yeah, I'm glad you didn't go down and were a glutton any punishment from that shit this year. Thank God.
Now, I actually, you know what, Bundy? That did remind me of the only other thing that I wanted to touch on. It's actually worth this last little bit. Torts out, a guy that was very loyal, was part of his staff, and a guy who, in fairness, I know that there are people who kind of mock the idea of the coach bump, fired coach bump, and about the idea that you should just have the full open search, which I think they will for coach. Is there anything that Bradshaw has done here of late that maybe makes him a more viable option or potentially gets him into a position where the Flyers say, you know what, short-term deal. We'll give you a 1-year deal, see how next year looks, instead of opening it up in the midst of this rebuild and saying, let's bring a guy in here on another 3-4 year deal. Do you think there's anything there, or do you think ultimately it's just kind of you let the season play out and just kind of reevaluate in the summer?
I don't want to speak for Danny or Jonesy or what their plans are, but I just looking at it from my standpoint, I absolutely would give that a full evaluation to bring Brad back next year. If I were running the team, 100% based on all the circumstances involved, where the team's at, where their player personnel is at, where they think they may be next year, how the draft goes, the free agency in the summer, I would absolutely, if I were running the team, be invested in at least exploring that option and exploring it deeply, not just having a small peek at it and then moving on to the next guy.
I like Shaw. And have you gotten any indications that he maybe has helped his case here with how the team has played, or do you think that they're still just the wide open search?
So they're going to do a search. I don't think it's going to be wide open. I think that they won't tell you this, but I think they have a short list of potential candidates, and I think there's a name at the top of that list that's probably the significant front runner. But Bradshaw might get looks elsewhere for a position. I mean, that's a possibility. So you could lose him, but if he doesn't get the head coach job somewhere else, I think that he will probably maintain his role as the associate coach for the Flyers for the new guy, and I think that will be part of what the Flyers will make a mandate for whoever the new coach is. Let's assume it's Rick Tocchet just for a second. If Tocchet leaves Vancouver and becomes available and comes here, they'll say to Tocchet, you can bring in one assistant coach, but you're keeping Bradshaw, assuming Shaw doesn't go somewhere else. I think that will be the most likely scenario. Now, again, Shaw can end up somewhere else, but they do like him. They do think he's a good coach, and they think that he helps the defense. And so I think that they would be smart to keep him if possible.
Okay. I think all of that is very logical. Look at this. This is a good logical conversation. We'll have to see. Hey, if nothing else, Bradshaw has always been willing to talk to the fine folks at Snow The Goalie, and it hasn't gotten him fired yet. So, gotta say, guys, we're riding a pretty good streak. Maybe if little Tortsy Poo had a little conversation, we maybe we'd still have a job. No,
there you go.
Not us. It has nothing to do with us. All right, I think that's probably about where we need to go. So we'll be back on Saturday, and then again on Tuesday with the Press Row Show. And I did see this over in the comments section as well. Timo says, listener request, add more shows with this kind of chit-chat. It's nice to listen to in between games. I will just really quickly, I know we've talked about this before, and Bundy kind of alluded to it. The show has evolved over time. We don't do these kind of sit-downs as much as we used to. I think in the off-season, we'll probably do more stuff like this. I think we'll probably go back to doing some of those like longer-form interviews that we did, and like during those the COVID summer. Those were trying times, right? But we've managed to get some really good people on the show. I think we'll probably look to do that in the summer as well. But for those who don't listen to Press Row Show, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that like while that show happens during the game, there are a lot of topics that we touch pregame, intermissions, and postgame that aren't related to that specific game. So it's not like going back and listening to that is just you getting like the NBC Sports Philadelphia pregame, intermission, and postgame shows where it's specifically catered to that game. We still have a lot of these back and forths, a lot of hilarity, probably more shenanigans than normal, but like those are still shows that are worth going back to check out on YouTube, X, Facebook, and then usually postgame hits the podcast feed. So I'd encourage you, if you haven't done that before, give it a shot. Anyway, we'll be back Saturday. You can find Bundy on Twitter at CTherien6. You can find Ant on Twitter at AntSanPhilly. I'm on Twitter at JoyOnBroad. We'll talk to all of you Saturday. You can hang out with me tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. on the Russ Joy Show. And Anthony will be back with what I have been told is the fastest growing Philadelphia Phillies podcast in the business, Fightin' Words. And that'll be on Friday as well. So, hey, you got plenty of us in your ears or on your YouTube or on your screen. So maybe we have to have a Bundy spinoff pod. Do we add another pod just for Bundy? The Bundy Show.
Yeah, why not?
What would you talk about, Bundy? If it wasn't hockey, what would be the topic that would be your
make the pitch.
Primary topic to talk about?
I would do a show on like recovery and addiction, but make it a fun show, like where you like laying out like stuff you did, and then I would do it with a couple people. That's probably what I do, but also make it like sports related, but also something like that. Something
that's like nice and actual
on recovery, but we're not talking recovery the whole time. We make it a sports pod.
That's like a really nice idea. I was going to joke that like you're probably just going to go after Big Tire because of the winter tires, No,
I got a question on that, Bundy, because I find it intriguing, right? I mean, obviously, a lot of people when you hear about recovery, they think it's very serious, and it is at times. I'm not trying to make light of it, but I do know, like, and you're a great example of someone who does this, who is someone who has no problem talking about your past and in a more lighthearted manner. So yes. I guess the question is, how often does that happen in recovery? Like how many people have that attitude that you have, where you could just sit around and laugh about the life you used to have that you no longer have anymore?
Yeah, and there's like I always said, people in recovery, like there's a lot of great stories. Like it doesn't mean your life was awful. It just means that you took it to a step too far and you had to rectify that situation. That's why I look at my drinking. I had to make sure that I fix that problem. I did, and I've been 14 years sober. It hasn't changed the person I was, but listen, I was a character. I'm going to say it. I was a character. I think a lot of my teammates would tell you I was, and I have a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories that I was out and had a few parties some nights, and some of those stories are absolutely fabulous, And I think, I can't beat myself up every single day for sins of the past. And I have to take it with a grain of salt and a little bit of a wink and a smile sometimes, But fortunately for me, I'm lucky I didn't hurt anybody or hurt myself. I didn't, I changed the lives of a lot of people by stopping. But I always look at it like I have so many sober friends now that are diehard sports fans. If I put together a sober podcast with a bunch of group of guys and all we talked about was sports, but did it in like a funny sense, like a lighthearted sense, it would be, I think it would be a hit. So I don't know what made you wake me up to that today, Russ, but you got me going now. So good job, guys.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. We might have to have a conversation about it. So anyway, we will be back this weekend. This is like the 5th time I've gone to sign off the show. I don't think I have anything else to distract us with or take us off the rails. So we'll talk to all of you Saturday on the Press Row Show. If you haven't done so already, please do us a favor. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe on YouTube. That really does matter. If you ring the bell, you'll get notified every time we go live. And if you see the shorts, or if you're on TikTok, or if you're on YouTube for YouTube Shorts, or Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, and you see the content, I know that you watch the episodes. Do us a favor, like those videos. It just helps more Flyers fans find the show. So anyway, thanks for all the support. We'll talk to each and every one of you Saturday on the Press Row Show. Thanks for listening, maybe even watching. Snow the Goalie, the only Flyers podcast. We'll talk to all of you this weekend. Have a great day, everybody.